You're listening to the Bob and Bo Show. Here are your hosts, Ty Bob, Ty Bo, and Sean. Welcome back to the show, everyone. I am Ty Bob, joined by Ty Bo and Sean. We are coming at you after a big overtime victory over the Tennessee Titans, 20-17. Like I said, in overtime. We will be covering that, but the boys got together over the weekend. We joined up in Weston at the Whiskey Fest, had a little bit of fun, had a lot of whiskey. There's a lot. There was a lot there, and one thing that Sean and I posed to Tybo, we all asked each other, what are your favorite whiskeys? And then we posed to Tybo, we need your top 5 whiskeys that came out of this event. Because I tell you, there's probably close to 100 of different years and different bottles that each vendor had. And man, they were amazing. So Tybo, goodness, give us your top 5.
Speaking in the third person.
A little bit.
Yeah. I'm writing down the last 2 here, and I will get to it. I'll give you my honorable mention. Maker's Mark was there, and their Maker's 46 was damn good. I think the only thing it was unpreventable. We weren't able to prevent this. We had a lot of good stuff at the beginning, and we had what was left at the end was the stuff that was biting a little bit more. And when you're drinking a lot of whiskey, that's not necessarily what you want to do. But the whiskeys that we had at the beginning of the Whiskey Fest were fantastic. But Makers we had kind of close to the end, so it was refreshing to have outside of the other ones that we were having.
You do have to do it that way when you go to events like these where the vendors only bring in so much of their stock because they don't
We
want to
missed
go
out on
home
a
with any.
blackberry whiskey that we were really wanting to try.
In
But
an hour. Within an hour,
yeah,
it was already gone. So we had to go hit the top brands that were around, the top whiskeys that were around. Otherwise, we are going to miss them completely.
yeah, and then as we get further away from COVID, it's just going to get busier and busier. Like it's probably not even to what it was before COVID. But anyways, into the actual top 5. My number 5 for the night was the Truman Reserve. Believe it was a golden whiskey.
Yes.
From Missouri.
From Missouri. Really, really good mouthfeel.
Whoa.
Phrasing.
No, people use the term mouthfeel when they just describe drinks, especially alcoholic beverages and wine. But I thought that was funny because I'm not like qualified. Like I'm not whatever the equivalent of a sommelier is for whiskey. I'm not that.
Just a guy who drinks whiskey occasionally.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Number 4, Basil Hayden.
That was a really good one.
Do you remember which whiskey we tried? All I'm remembering is the brand here.
It was just their. I think it was just like their equivalent of their everyday. It was their bourbon. They've got a bourbon, and then they've got a. I can't remember off the top of my head what the second one was, but it was just the bourbon.
Yeah,
it was good. This top 3, which my phone just died. I have it memorized now. But, didn't plan that out very well. The top 3, I was blown away by the top 3. The bottom 2 were kind of close for me, Truman Reserve and Basil Hayden. I feel like they were very similar and it could have gone either way. But the top 3 were definitely my top 3. And number 3 is Tullamore Dew's Caribbean rum cask whiskey. That shit was one of the first ones that really made me go like, "Oh my god, I like that." And it's not the typical flavor of a whiskey. You can kind of get the Caribbean feel to it, but I kind of like that. And it didn't have any bite to it really. It was a smooth whiskey, went down very easy. But it was one of my favorites of the night. But sadly, it does end up at number 3.
that was the one that me and Tybo tried something completely different to start with, and Tybo was just like, you know what, that one sounds really good. And
Yeah.
We had to make a trip back just for that one.
Yeah, definitely one of the favorites for the night for me. Number two was the first whiskey that we tried of the night. I think you guys tried the single malt, and I tried a small batch. I went back and tried the single malt. But Four Roses, their single malt whiskey was fantastic.
Single barrel.
Single barrel, not single malt, whatever. Um, but I thought it was a little bit better than their small batch. But that small batch that they had there was also fantastic.
Yeah, we
We
really
had
had to
to-
go to after that one.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. We really had to get there. First whiskey of the day, and it stood out even throughout the rest of the night. But my number one, um, probably a one of the better known names in whiskey, especially around the Midwest. You see it at every bar. It's mostly the 12, but the Glenfiddich 15, that one, my face really lit up. Like that was like that's kind of like a good whiskey standard right there. The Glenfiddich 15. Um, you're like a classic whiskey flavor, but nothing to it, man. Like it was very smooth. It was warm. Like it's what you want in a whiskey. Like not the whiskey itself wasn't warm, but no, that feeling, that warm feeling you get after drinking, a bit of whiskey. It kind of starts from your chest and like goes out into your fingers. You kind of feel it like take over you. It's a good feeling.
I was gonna say I was a little cold going into that place, but after Four Roses and
Yeah,
Glenfiddich, warmed right up.
we were good.
And the Glenfiddich, so they do have a good mix there at the Whiskey Fest. The Glenfiddich is a Scotch whiskey. They had Irish whiskeys and a large assortment of bourbon. The 15 is one from Glenfiddich that you don't find in most places.
Right.
It is more reserved than even their 18 year. That goes through a different distilling process mixed with different spices than a typical Scotch. So that's why it stands out to most people when they take it.
It comes in like
take
a
a shot of
little,
it.
like a light blue label or bottle.
Purple. It's purple.
Purple. I knew it was a different color than I think we were used to seeing.
Yeah.
But
You typically don't get those purples when it comes to Scotch, mainly only in bourbon. That's the first time you guys have been there. I was really happy to experience that with you after going last year. And this year was much, much bigger. There were way more people. There was way more whiskey there. What were your guys' first thoughts of your first year at Whiskey Fest?
Well, my first thoughts were 10 minutes in after having like 4 or 5 whiskeys. I'm like, man, I don't know I'm gonna make it through the day. But in the 3 hours, I still made it through the day, and I will never forget McDuffin's.
no, I called it I called it McGuffins.
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 This place was called
Oh,
O'Malley's, and
yeah.
Tabo called it McGuffins all night long.
All night. I I mean, originally I don't even think I was trying to be funny. I was just
No,
trying to think of what something Irish, but then I had to keep it going for the rest of the night. So
It was one of the Irish pubs we went to afterwards to get a little bite to eat, and boys got a couple black and tans. But yeah, the MacGuffins, that was fantastic.
they were neither. They were not tan at all.
No, nope, it was just straight
no,
Guinness.
I do know, and I said this that night, but what pissed me off was I saw two perfectly poured black and tans walk right by me. Somebody else just got one, and it was perfect. So what the hell happened to ours?
Well, folks, as we get away from the Saturday and into the games that happened on Sunday and Monday, we do have a little bit of news before we start everything off. There was a tweet from Adam Schefter about a schedule change. That is flex to Sunday Night Football. The Chiefs and Chargers game has been flexed from November the 20th. That will go from, I believe it was a 3:25 game to the 7:20 game, and be that Sunday night's showdown. Now there is quite a bit to look forward to here as we are now in the season in which games can be flexed. Um, so a few things to keep your eyes on. Um, the next I went through and looked at a couple things here, and the next time that I see the Chiefs being able to flex is on week 13. Now, one other thing is teams can have a max of 7 prime time games. That's Sunday night, Thursdays, and Mondays. Those are your prime time games, so you can have a max of 7. Right now, the Kansas City Chiefs being flexed into the Sunday night spot on the 20th. That is 6, so we only get one more. Um, on week 13, Sunday Night Football is Colts versus the Cowboys, while the Chiefs play the Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati. That could be the flex. That is probably the best game of that week is Chiefs Cincinnati. I would keep your eyes on that. Well, we're also keeping in mind how bad the Broncos are. The Chiefs play the Broncos in week 14 Sunday night. The next best game that week is Jets versus Bills. Could even be Browns versus the Bengals, depending on how good Deshaun Watson plays when he comes back. So expect the Kansas City Chiefs to potentially be flexed out of the Sunday night spot in week 14. To finish it off, if the Chiefs are flexed for week 14, that would mean that we are down to 6 and can go back up with one game to make our max of 7. And there's 1 week before the end that everybody needs to keep their eyes on. That's week 16, where the Chiefs play at home versus the Seattle Seahawks. The current game slated for Sunday night on week 16 is the Raiders and the Steelers, who are both really bad teams. They both would have already had their equal share of what the primetime games are. So potentially expect some changes to come through, maybe more than we've seen so far throughout the previous seasons when they were getting pretty flex happy. This could be a really interesting time for some flex games. With that, the Kansas City Chiefs did get a big win against the Titans, who still lead their division, who are number 2 in the AFC for playoffs. They do now fall to 3rd due to the matchup or the head-to-head with Kansas City. There are quite a few things that did go wrong in this game to keep it a 2017 score. What were some of the things that you saw that went wrong?
Blocking. Pat was on the run all game,
That was
and this wasn't one of the better showings from OB, Wiley, Trey Smith went back and forth. The offensive line did not perform to what they were capable of, and we didn't want to see them play down to the level of who we were playing. And I'm not saying that the Titans are bad, but our offensive line is definitely better than what they showed on Sunday night.
Yeah, I think that this was the most pressures Pat's ever had in his career with 18, and they pretty much did that with only 4 rushers all night. So that was really worrisome to see. I'm gonna have to go with what went wrong was the running game. I could just tell from the very first drive they were throwing it right away. They were not going to get that going, but it proved to be right because they could not run the ball with the shit.
You're 100% right. Patrick Mahomes threw the ball 68 times. He nearly tied the record at 70, which I think that record goes back to like 72 or so. It's back there a little ways. That's not what we want to see. The gap, Patrick Mahomes completed 43 passes. This comes from NFL research. Patrick Mahomes completed 43 passes while Malik Willis completed 5. The gap of 38 is the largest in a game in the Super Bowl era, breaking the previous record of 36 from the 59 to nothing Patriots win over the Titans in Week 6 of 2009. Not pretty. That definitely didn't go right. Something that went wrong for me, mainly just early in the game, was the defensive splits. Just allowing the gaps through the defensive line, not really filling or flowing from the defensive line or from the linebacker perspective. That obviously got corrected later on, but early on in the game, the boys were just getting worked down below on the defensive side, and it was not a pretty sight.
Well, and for bits of this game, they also didn't want to tackle either. We gave up. I mean, Derrick Henry was their offense, over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. So,
Is their
uh,
offense. This is what
yeah.
they've been doing. That's the game plan that they go in with. How do we not see this coming earlier?
But at the same time, they only scored 17 points. Like, uh, I would say of the two sides of the ball, the defense played a better game.
Of course. Yes.
Yeah, barring a few big plays the Titans had, the defense held them in check for pretty much the whole entire night. They busted off two big plays to actually get in range to do anything. And as we said in the pregame show, the Titans were one of the top. They're the top two red zone efficient teams in the NFL. So if they're down there, they have a great chance of scoring.
Yeah, when you talk about efficiency, this one stood out to me from Warren Sharp. He was talking about the offensive touchdown rate inside the 5 yard line. So if these teams are getting inside five or really inside the red zone, they're scoring. Tennessee's at 82%, which we did a fantastic job of holding that out or at least not letting them get that far in. Kansas City sits all the way down at 8 with 55%. That's not where we want to be. But the most surprising at all, or of all, is Buffalo sits in dead last at 25%, which is pretty funny. Um, but yeah, I thought the defense did well. Before we get into the things that went right, what are some of the things that concern you moving forward that you saw from this game? For me, it's got to be the tackling. Um, you can't obviously it picked up towards the end, but you can't come out whiffing on multiple plays, whether it's stuffing the run or running down a receiver. You got to get dudes on the ground. You can't just go in and try to arm tackle in this league. Guys are way too big. They're way too strong. And we've seen that be a little bit of a continuous problem so far through this season.
Yeah, I've got to
Yeah.
go with blocking here. Like Typo said earlier with what we're on earlier. This offensive line, for the most part, seems to be very wishy-washy in what games they want to play in. And the Titans, you've been preparing for them for 2 weeks now with the bye. They are a physical team. You have to come out, be prepared for that. And they just did not come out prepared for that. So,
Yeah, the offensive line is certainly worrisome, but I think overall, uh, the thing that I've had a problem with Kansas, like this team, since the year after the Super Bowl, and um, I almost feel like to the ones around me, the ones that know me, I've talked about this till I'm blue in the face, and it's not even like a point of contention anymore because I just understand the team that I'm going to get. But it's the offensive play calling. Like I know that we have probably the greatest quarterback that has played this game so far, and he's good at throwing the ball. But when we throw the ball 68 times a game, at a certain point, we still we feel like stagnant. We we are with how many weapons we have, with how many different ways that we can move the ball, we still feel one dimensional. And a mixture of poor pass blocking and throwing the ball 68 times a game isn't good for him and the longevity of his career. But we can't, I understand that we're going to have some issues with the run game with the running backs that we have. We have a rookie bruiser that, doesn't make the best decisions all the time. We have a receiving back that doesn't um, run well on the NFL level. And then we have Jerick McKinnon, who is injury prone, but a lot of people are saying he's the best running back on the roster. If we don't figure out a way to get the running game going and not abandon it, it's going to look a lot like this game, and there's better defenses out there than Tennessee.
We've seen Kansas City's offense be completely unstoppable when it incorporates the run game. What I find so ridiculous is that we have got an offensive coordinator who was a running back in college and in the pros for a little bit. He has been with the Kansas City Chiefs for numerous years now, not just in the offensive coordinator position, but as the running backs coach. yet still cannot get the running game going since we lost Kareem Hunt. What does that say about Eric Bieniemy?
Does that say that Andy Reid's going to overcall him there, or that's the real question because it's Andy's playbook.
A lot of people go back and forth with that, and I'm not a person who is ever this is a crappy play calling game. This one's Eric Bieniemy. This one's a good play calling game. This one's Andy Reid. Like they both are going to have a share, and now add Matt Nagy into that as well, being a not just our quarterbacks coach, but he is involved in how our offense coordinates. Um, let's not take away credit from Eric Bieniemy. And let's not give too much credit to somebody else. He is the offensive coordinator. Of course, Andy is going to have the final say so. Any head coach is going to have the final say so on anything, whether that's offense, defense, or special teams. But at the end of the day, it's Eric Bieniemy's offense. At the end of the day, if he's going to go and look for a head coaching gig or an offensive coordinating gig at another team, they are going to use what he's doing in Kansas City as the offensive coordinator, and we should be able to judge the what happens on the field based upon play calling on his portion because that's his job, regardless if somebody else is this guru or it's their offense or it's their defense. Because it would be if Andy Reid was a defensive coach, we would be saying, well, what are these issues? Why is Spags not calling the defense? It's Andy. We've got to give credit where credit is due, good or bad.
So I just feel like at the game and probably watching it on TV too, there's never a point where you feel like the Chiefs are necessarily out of the game, right? The We were down by one score for a long period of time. Like I would say, like it was um 17-9 for a while. Um, but there was a certain level of panic that you feel from the offense when they abandon the run like that. When Pat is throwing the ball that much in a game, that it doesn't. There's a certain nervousness or like on edge feeling because we know as fans we've essentially abandoned the game script and we're like, Pat, go work your magic, like, and he did. He had to run for a 3rd and 17. But is that the formula that's really going to win you games? No. It's the offense that we saw in the Bucks game. It's the offense that we saw um,
Against the Chargers.
against the
Against the Chargers.
maybe not the Chargers. We only had 100 passing yards that game. Um, God, who did we just beat before the Titans?
Niners.
The Niners. Yeah.
Do we see this as Bieniemy's last year in Kansas City, regardless if he finds a head coaching gig or not? Um, I am led to believe that it would be just because this team needs a fresh pair of eyes at the offensive coordinator position. It's somebody, and that would be Matt Nagy, even though he is familiar. He has been outside of the facility previous to this year for 3 years. So that would be considered a fresh set of eyes because his
Yeah,
playbook is not what's
he
being
went to
instilled.
Chicago and everybody hated him.
Right.
Yeah.
The fans were coming for his throat. We want that guy as our offensive coordinator. Like I'm all for a fresh, like a refresh at the offensive coordinator spot, but we think Matt Nagy's the guy to be refreshing for us.
I mean, the last time he was in Kansas City was the year Patrick went off and had 3 touchdowns and over 5,000 yards before he left for Chicago.
He was the guy. He was the guy calling the
time,
plays.
or was
Yes,
he
was the OC. He was the OC. He was the guy who was one of the helpful reasons to get Patrick Mahomes on the field, but also playing much more quickly and effectively. And one of the reasons why Pat threw for those, like Sean said, for those 50 plus touchdowns, 5,000 plus yards. And that's the reason why Chicago wanted him so bad and why he only spent a short amount of time as an offensive coordinator. I wouldn't necessarily pin Chicago's failures all on him just because their defensive or just because their GM doesn't know how to bring in talent.
There was a lot more going on in Chicago besides just him. They drafted Mitch Trubisky first overall.
And that wasn't his call.
No, and that was the year that Pat went. So, or after Pat, but he still had Mitch. That's not good.
Boys, there was a lot of things that there's quite a few things that still went right in this game. What are some of the things that you saw that did go right?
Travis Kelce.
Well, I mean, even then, Travis Kelce still had a 50% catch rate. He was dropping quite a bit. Yeah, he went 10 for 17. He's obviously going to get a lot of those targets, but he did have quite a few drops.
Another receiving option, Juju. Juju looked phenomenal. 10 catches in this game. I believe it was like 89 yards.
88 yards, 10 receptions on 12 targets as well.
Yeah.
Very efficient.
He took over Travis's role of finding the spot in the zone in the second half.
Titans penalties on 2-point conversions.
I was so
that
sick.
Kind of saved us the
game.
That. Like,
oh no, it did, but I was so sick of seeing that. That crew is awful.
Pat Mahomes looks like Gale Sayers whenever he's playing against the Titans. He looks like the best person to run against the Titans at any moment.
He did make Jeffrey Simmons. Isn't it Jeffrey Simmons?
Jeffrey Simmons
kind of eat his words. He gave him just like the subtle moves that he has when he's scrambling outside the pocket are second to about no one in the league, man. Like Pat definitely is just, he's got a little bit of a step to him, and he's not fast. So I think it's hilarious.
For as much pressure as the offensive line gave up and as much trash as Jeffrey Simmons was talking pre-game, Jeffrey Simmons did in the game with 0 tackles, 0 tackles total, 0 TFLs, 0 QB pressures, 0 QB hits, 0 sacks. He ended up with null and void across the board.
Wow.
Beautiful. A bright and shining spot for me is going to be Kadarius Toney. He's out on the field.
You said it first. I was also going to say that.
He was out on the field for 9 of the 100 snaps, only 9% of the time, but he got 2 targets. He caught both of them for 12 yards. His routes were crisp. He was throwing chip blocks. He looked like a guy who wants to play. I don't care what any of the fake news outlets that were out there saying this guy doesn't love ball. This guy was just stuck in a place that didn't want him. And that happens around the league. That's not uncommon. But that guy went out there, played as hard as he could. He is going to be a bright, shining spot for years to come in this Kansas City Chiefs offense. I am, for one, glad to have him here.
One of the biggest things I saw from Kadarius was even if he didn't get a reception, he was the first person to cheer the person on right there. And just seeing that as a new guy coming in, he's ready to go. He's going to perform in this offense, man.
He was the first guy to pick up Pat when he was on the ground. He was the first guy to pick up anybody else. He was the first guy there to cheer, like you said. He was there running down the sidelines, whether he was on the sideline or on the field. He was around these guys, and it's good to see energy like that. It's really good to see the front office be able to pinpoint guys with that energy and that charisma and the guys who want to be there. It shows that they know what they're doing and that they're continuing to look forward to the future, not just on guys who have talent, but guys who have the correct attitudes.
Another big thing that went right in this game was the defense in the second half. They played phenomenal. I loved watching that. And Malik Willis paid a little homage to Alex Smith and did not complete a pass for wide receiver.
You'll love
I
to
mean,
see
he
it.
only had 80 yards on the night, right? Like,
Yeah, but to tight ends and running backs only, man, like that just shows you how bad the Titans receivers are.
If only they had AJ Brown.
If only.
Um, and like you said, to go along with the defense from Sam McDowell, the Titans finished with 10 yards and 1 first down on their final 10 drives. It just goes to show how much of a change there was from the first half to the second half. And Chris Jones did talk about that in his presser as well when he threw shots at Jeffrey Simmons.
the defense would be coming back out on the field, and we'd be like, can they do it again? Like they played their asses off in that second half.
Along with that defense, there's one guy who is getting talked about on Twitter, but not enough in the media. Trent McDuffie has played 45 snaps in the NFL. This is his first game back since playing in the first quarter of the first game and getting injured. He's played 45 snaps and has yet to allow a reception.
I think that was one of the biggest factors in Malik Willis only hitting tight ends and running backs.
Yeah, just seeing that.
I didn't expect this from him. I didn't expect him to come back and play as much as he did and be that good. I didn't expect that from a rookie in game one, let alone being out as long as he was and doing that in week 9.
Well, I think we were talking about it earlier. I believe he was almost ready to go for the Niners, if not the game before that, but holding him out really proved to be the right move here. Get him that extra week with the bye week, going there ready to go because he looked amazing out there. He was a lockdown corner.
At face value at this point, McDuffie is giving us the level of play of Tariq Woolen and Sauce Gardner, just without the physical attributes. He's a little bit shorter. He's not as long.
I think there's still room for Malik Willis to grow, but
he's going to be amazing in the future.
He's going to be good. There's obviously
Are we talking
something
about Malik or Trent McDuffie here?
Sorry, I thought we were. I heard Malik. You can find me. Yeah, Trent
I said
McDuffie.
Tariq Woolen.
Tariq Woolen.
But that was the level of play of another cornerback. I'm sorry, dude.
Nope, find me for that one.
Gotcha.
No, he is playing. That is, I think that's a fair assessment. Who knows if he had played the full season, would he be in the defensive rookie talks? It's possible. Again, we're only 45 snaps in, but the guy's looking like what could be a potential superstar if this continues. Real quick here, outside of Trent McDuffie, who are a couple of players that stood out to you guys during this week 9 matchup? It can't be Trent McDuffie, and we cannot go the Chris Collinsworth route of Andrew Wiley, because I don't know what the hell he was talking about in the broadcast, that Andrew Wiley was an unsung hero. He clearly wasn't watching the game, but those are two guys that are off the table for this.
I'm going to give you two white boys from the offense, Noah Gray and Justin Watson.
Damn it, man.
Two big and improbable catches. Both times when the ball got released, I didn't think that either of them were going to catch it. I don't believe a whole lot in Noah Gray. And the Justin Watson ball, just like, I don't know. I don't think very many people thought he was going to catch it, period. So, I mean, it was
not a lot of guys in the league that can catch either of those balls. Both of those should probably be candidates for catch of the year. Noah Gray's easily should be. Noah Gray should be up there for catch of the year. In between two defenders over his body.
Over George Pickens?
There's nobody beating that Pickens catch right now.
Yeah. I said it should be in the conversation. I didn't say it should beat it. Should be in the conversation.
Okay.
But there is also a reason why when they drafted Noah Gray, that Chiefs his teammates were running around calling him Mini TK.
I really, really want to see us using him a lot more, just to see what we have for the future.
as well.
No.
But with Travis still doing what he's doing, let Travis eat, man.
When Jody's back, Noah can go back to blocking.
No, let Jody just eat in the red zone.
That's fine.
Noah, the rest of the field.
Need a red zone target out there.
Noah's not a red zone target. I think he's a little too small for that compared to Jody.
Yeah, those are two good guys. I would
Oh, don't take mine.
go. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. You got him.
Kalen Saunders.
Good one. Good one.
He had a phenomenal game.
I'm sorry. How did you pronounce his name again?
Kalen Saunders.
Colin.
It's not. It's
Colin.
not. It's not Kalen.
Whatever.
It's that specifically in his Twitter bio too.
Okay, that's on me. But I got Saunders right. That man, whew, one of the most athletic dudes on the team, honestly. And he
I want to see him
came
at
to
running
play.
back. At this
Put him in,
this
Andy.
point, I mean, can we get one or two snaps out of the I form with Colin Saunders back there? Like, just I mean, give it a go. It's gonna be better than what we're getting out of the running backs that we've like been seeing lately.
That brings up a good question. Are we going to activate Rojo at some point?
I think there's a lot of people saying like it would be a nice like
Good switch up.
fresh set of legs. So yes, like a switch it up type of thing. But it's getting aggravating.
For me, I'm gonna have to say Justin Reed. Dude was flying. You didn't hear his name all night, but he was flying around the field. He was mixed up in every single play. Obviously, you really didn't hear his name because they didn't pass the ball very much. But he was in every single play, filling gaps, flow into the open field. He was around every play, and you like to see a guy like that be mixed up and involved. And that's the game against the Titans. It was ugly. It wasn't the best, but good teams know how to win when it gets tough. Next game is going to be on Sunday in the noon hour against the Jacksonville Jaguars. We've got the storm that is coming from the Jacksonville area, could turn into a hurricane. We've also got another storm cycle that's coming from the Western Hemisphere that's going to be pushing in. They're talking about potentially 2 feet of snow up near the north midwestern portion of the country. But we're going to see those temperatures start to fall and possibly snow in Kansas City as well. One thing to note, the Jaguars are 0-20 in their last 20 games when the temperature is 55 degrees or less. And right now it's projected to be 39 degrees or lower in Kansas City due to those storm fronts that are moving in from the west and the east. It's going to be 27 degrees on Thursday night in Kansas City. It's going to be cold, folks. The winter is here. It is coming, and we've got a game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, another team that likes to run the ball. Make sure to tune back in on Friday to check out our pregame show for that one. But always never forget, go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs.